My beloved child, stay with me, because today your soulmate heard something about you that reached a place inside them no ordinary words had ever touched. They were not prepared for it. They believed this would be another ordinary day, filled with familiar faces, predictable conversations, and the same quiet effort to keep their true feelings hidden. But before the day could pass, one unexpected voice spoke your name, and in that instant, everything around them seemed to become still. Don't look away now. What comes next changes everything. Your soulmate had spent so long convincing themselves that you had moved on, that the connection between you had faded, and that the silence separating you meant there was nothing left to understand. They had repeated these thoughts until they almost sounded true. Yet whenever the world became quiet, your memory returned. It appeared in familiar songs, unexpected dreams, certain numbers on a clock, and moments when they felt someone missing without knowing how to explain why. They could hide this from others, but they could never completely hide it from their own heart. Today, however, someone revealed a truth that shattered every explanation they had built. This is where the story begins. Earlier this morning, your soulmate entered a place they had visited many times before. Nothing about it appeared unusual. Light rested softly across the floor. Conversations blended into a distant murmur. A clock on the wall continued moving as if this day carried no special meaning. Your soulmate sat down, placed their hands together, and tried to focus on the person speaking to them. But something felt different. A small golden reflection appeared on the window beside them, almost like a thread of light pointing toward a truth that had been waiting for the right hour. They noticed it, dismissed it, and looked away. Then your name was spoken. Not casually. Not as part of a passing memory. Your name was spoken with such sincerity that your soulmate immediately stopped moving. The person sitting across from them had recently seen someone connected to your life. That meeting had revealed something your soulmate was never meant to hear, at least, not yet. Stay till the end, because the first thing they heard was only the outer door. Something huge is waiting for you behind it. The person leaned closer and said, "There is something you should know about them." Your soulmate tried to appear calm, but their fingers tightened around the edge of the table. They asked what had happened. The answer did not come immediately. There was a pause long enough for every hidden emotion to rise. Your soulmate's mind filled with questions. Had you spoken about them? Had you forgotten them? Had you found peace without them? Had the story between you finally become nothing more than a memory? Then the person said something surprising. You were wrong about why they became quiet. Those words changed the atmosphere. Your soulmate had always believed your silence meant indifference. They believed you stepped back because they no longer mattered to you. They had secretly used that belief as permission to bury their emotions. But now they were being told that your silence held an entirely different meaning. Don't skip. Your answer is closer than you think. The person explained that some time ago, your name had come up during a private conversation. Several people were discussing relationships that had changed them, and someone mentioned your soulmate. They expected you to speak with frustration or dismiss everything the two of you once shared. Instead, you became quiet. You looked away for a moment, as though protecting something precious from careless attention. Then you said, "Some connections do not disappear simply because two people lose their way. Sometimes the heart remains loyal while life teaches them how to return. When your soulmate heard those words today, their careful expression began to change. They asked whether you had truly said that. The person assured them that you had. But that was not the revelation that made them break down. That was only the first sign. The deeper truth was connected to something you had done when nobody was watching. There had been a moment when someone misunderstood your soulmate and spoke about them unfairly. You could have remained silent. You could have agreed simply to make yourself appear stronger. Instead, you protected the dignity of the person who was no longer standing beside you. You told everyone that they did not know the full story. You said your soulmate had made mistakes, but those mistakes did not erase the kindness you had witnessed in them. You refused to let one difficult chapter become the definition of their entire heart. Your soulmate heard every word of this today. Their eyes lowered. Their breathing became unsteady. They remembered how many times they had assumed the worst about your silence, while you had been preserving their name in rooms they never entered. Stay with me. The moment that completely changed them came next. The person across from them reached into a bag and placed a small object on the table. It was wrapped in pale blue cloth and tied with a thin silver ribbon. Your soulmate recognized the ribbon immediately. Long ago, during a meaningful conversation, you had told them that silver reminded you of promises that remain visible even beneath clouds. They had forgotten the sentence, or believed they had forgotten it. But seeing that ribbon brought the memory back with astonishing clarity. Their hands trembled as they touched it. They asked where it had come from. The person replied, "This belonged to them, but it carries your name. Don't look away now." Beneath the cloth was a sealed envelope. The writing on the front was unmistakably yours. Their name was written slowly and carefully, as though every letter mattered. The envelope had not been opened. It appeared to have been kept for a long time, protected from dust and time. Your soulmate looked at it, then at the person who had brought it, unable to understand why something written by you had arrived today. They were told that the envelope had been discovered inside an old book you once kept close. Between its pages was a pressed white flower, a tiny brass key, and this letter. 3 symbols, each carrying a hidden meaning. The flower represented a feeling preserved beyond its season. The key represented a door that had never truly been locked. And the letter represented everything your heart had been unable to say when the two of you last stood face to face. Your soulmate did not open it immediately. They simply held it. That was when the first tear appeared. Not because they were weak, but because the story they had believed for so long was beginning to fall apart. The silence had not meant you felt nothing. The distance had not erased the bond. What they heard about you today revealed that while they were trying to forget, you had been quietly honoring what was real. Yet one question remained: why had the letter reached them now? The answer was waiting beneath the silver ribbon, and what it revealed would make every coincidence from the past several weeks suddenly make sense. But the room still held one more secret, and this was the secret that completely broke through the walls around your soulmate's heart. Stay with me, because what happened after they touched the envelope was not what anyone expected. A familiar melody began playing somewhere nearby, the same melody that had once followed a conversation between the two of you. Your soulmate looked around, searching for its source, but nobody else appeared to notice its significance. To everyone else, it was simply music. To them, it was a doorway opening inside memory. They remembered the evening when you had both spoken honestly about the future. You had said that if two hearts were ever separated by confusion, truth would eventually find a way to sit between them. At the time, your soulmate smiled and treated it like a beautiful idea. Today, with your letter in their hands, those words felt like a promise returning to be fulfilled. What comes next changes everything. The person who brought the envelope explained that it had not been found by accident. An elderly woman who knew you during an earlier chapter of your life had kept the book safe. She remembered you placing the letter inside it. She had asked why you were not sending it, and you had answered, because love should never arrive as pressure. If this message is meant to reach them, it will reach them when their heart is ready to hear it. Your soulmate covered their mouth when they heard this. They had spent months wondering why you never forced a conversation, never chased them for an explanation, and never demanded that they choose you. They had interpreted your restraint as distance. Now they understood it as respect. You had not disappeared because the connection meant little. You stepped back because it meant too much to turn it into a struggle. This emotional twist reached deeper than any grand confession could have reached. Your soulmates suddenly saw the past from another side. They remembered occasions when you had almost spoken but chose silence. They remembered the softness in your eyes during your final conversation. They remembered you saying, "I hope one day you understand," and they had assumed you meant that they would understand your disappointment. But that was not what you meant. You hoped they would one day understand the purity of a love that refused to control them. Don't skip, because the story turns again here. Your soulmate finally asked the person, "What else did they say about me?" The answer arrived gently. They said you were the one person they could never reduce to a lesson. They said you were still a possibility. Those words moved through your soulmate like light entering a room that had remained closed for too long. Their eyes filled completely. They tried to speak, but their voice could not carry everything rising inside them. They looked down at your name written on the corner of the envelope and whispered that they had misunderstood you. Then the person told them one final detail about the conversation in which you had defended them. After everyone else left, you remained behind. You picked up a small piece of paper and drew two circles separated by a narrow line. Someone asked what it meant. You answered, "Two lives can appear divided while still belonging to the same design." You then folded the paper and placed it inside the book with the letter. That folded paper was now inside the envelope your soulmate held. Spiritual symbolism surrounded the moment: two circles, one line, a white flower, a brass key, and a silver ribbon. Each object seemed to echo the same message: the bond had not ended, it had entered a quiet season in which both hearts were being asked to see clearly. Your soulmate finally broke down, not from sadness alone, but from the weight of realizing how deeply they had misread your heart. They remembered every time they had told themselves you did not care. They remembered trying to replace the feeling with distractions, only to recognize your presence in every comparison. They remembered hearing your name unexpectedly, and pretending it meant nothing. Yet now the truth was sitting in their hands. You had never used their absence to make them look small. You had spoken of them with grace. You had protected their dignity. You had trusted time with the words you could not deliver. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, because your soulmate still had not opened the letter. Before they could break the seal, the person across from them said, "There is another reason I brought this today." Your soulmate looked up. The person explained that 3 nights earlier, the elderly woman had dreamed of a corridor illuminated by 7 lamps. At the end of that corridor stood a closed door with your soulmate's initials carved into the wood. In the dream, the little brass key from your book rested beneath the final lamp. The woman woke with one clear thought: the letter had waited long enough. Whether the dream was simply memory arranging symbols or something more mysterious, its timing was impossible to ignore. That same morning, your soulmate had awakened after dreaming of you. In their dream, you stood on the opposite side of a river holding a blue light. You did not call out. You only raised your hand, and a bridge began forming across the water. They had told nobody about this dream. Hearing about the 7 lamps and the key made them look at the envelope with wonder. 2 separate dreams, 2 people, 1 message. A closed distance was preparing to open. Don't look away now. Your answer is closer than you think. Your soulmate turned the brass key between their fingers and noticed a tiny word engraved along its side: return. The word did not command them to run toward you without thought. It invited them to return to honesty, to return to the feelings they had buried, and to return to the question they had avoided. If you stood before them now, what truth would they finally be brave enough to say? The answer came through their tears. They whispered, "I would tell them I never stopped carrying them with me." The person across from them remained silent, allowing the confession to exist without interruption. Your soulmate then admitted something nobody knew. They had written messages to you many times and erased them before sending. They had saved one photograph because it reminded them of who they were when their heart felt understood. They had visited a place connected to you, hoping perhaps life would create an unexpected meeting. They had looked at the sky on certain evenings and wondered whether you were looking at the same colors. They had asked for a sign, but when signs appeared, they dismissed them because accepting them would require admitting the depth of their feelings. Today, dismissal was no longer possible. The envelope was real. Your words were real. The person who had heard you defend them was real. And the emotion moving through them was the most honest thing they had felt in a long time. This is where the story begins, not where it ends. Because once your soulmate accepted that your silence had carried love rather than indifference, another realization surfaced. If you had been waiting without pressure, perhaps they had not missed their chance. Perhaps the delay had not been punishment. Perhaps both of you had been growing toward a conversation that could only happen after pride became quiet and truth became stronger. Yet the letter still waited, sealed between their hands, holding a revelation neither of you could take back once it was read. Then came the moment no one in that room could have predicted. Your soulmate carefully loosened the silver ribbon, placed the white flower beside the brass key, and held the envelope close to their heart before opening it. "Stay with me." The first sound they heard was not the tearing of paper but the soft chime of the clock marking the hour. They looked up and saw repeating numbers across its face, the same numbers they had noticed for several days without understanding why. For them, it felt like a symbolic pause, as though time itself were asking them to pay attention. What comes next changes everything. Inside the envelope were several pages, but the first page contained only one sentence. "If this has reached you, then the truth has finally found the courage that we could not find together." Your soulmate read it twice. Then a third time. The sentence felt alive because it did not blame them, accuse them, or demand anything from them. It simply opened a door. They turned the page and found the drawing of two circles divided by a narrow line. But now they noticed something nobody had seen before. When the paper was unfolded completely, the narrow line did not separate the circles. It curved beneath them and joined both at the base, creating the shape of an infinity symbol. What had appeared to be separation was actually connection viewed from the wrong angle. That image became the perfect symbol for the story between you. From one perspective, the two of you looked divided. From another, every lesson, delay, and unanswered question had been quietly leading your hearts toward the same point. Don't skip. The most surprising line had not yet been read. On the next page, you had written about the final day you saw them. You described noticing that they were trying to appear certain while their eyes carried hesitation. You admitted that you nearly asked them to stay, but something within you chose a more loving path. You wrote, "I wanted your return to be a choice made by clarity, not a decision made by guilt. So I let the moment pass, even though every part of me wanted one more conversation." When your soulmate reached that line, their strength gave way. They lowered the letter and wept openly. The person who had brought it moved closer, but your soulmate shook their head gently. They did not want the emotion to be interrupted. This release had been waiting behind months of silence. They were not only grieving the time that had passed, they were finally releasing the false belief that they had never mattered to you. They now knew that you had felt the same invisible pull. You had simply expressed it through patience. Your soulmate continued reading. The letter spoke of small memories they believed you had forgotten. The way they laughed before finishing a sentence, the way they became quiet when overwhelmed, the dream they once shared with you but later treated as impossible, and the promise they made to become someone capable of choosing love without running from it. Every detail showed that you had seen them, not only the polished version they offered to the world, but also the uncertain person beneath it. Yet you did not write about their uncertainty with judgment. You described it with compassion. Your soulmate pressed a hand over their heart because this was the thing they had always wanted, to be fully understood without being made to feel unworthy. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Halfway through the letter, your tone changed. You wrote that you had received an unexpected opportunity in another place, an opportunity that could redirect your future. You did not know whether you would accept it. Before deciding, you wanted to understand whether the chapter between you was truly complete or whether life had paused it for a greater reason. But instead of contacting your soulmate, you placed the decision inside the sealed letter. You wrote two possible dates at the bottom of the page. One date had already passed. The second date was approaching. Beside it, you wrote, "If the letter reaches you before this day, I will know that truth still has a path between us." Your soulmate looked quickly at the date. Their face changed. It was close, closer than anyone in the room realized. Suddenly the arrival of the envelope did not feel like a memory returning. It felt like a living question. This once-in-a-lifetime revelation asked them to choose whether they would continue hiding or finally honor the love they had never released. "Don't look away now." They turned to the person beside them and asked, "Do they know you brought this?" The person answered, "No." They trusted the letter to time. I only followed where it led. Your soulmate stood up so quickly that the chair shifted behind them. For the first time that day, their tears were joined by determination. They gathered the pages, tied the silver ribbon around their wrist, and placed the brass key safely in their palm.